Another large barrage of explosions has been reported in northern Gaza in the past hour, with reports that communications and the internet have once again been cut off. The Israeli army said today it had now struck over 2,500 terror targets. More than 9,400 people have now been killed, according to figures from the Gaza Health Ministry, appointed by Hamas, which is designated a terrorist organization by the UK. Since their gruesome videos on Black Saturday, Hamas have been largely invisible until now. Courtesy of the Hamas military wing, we have these pictures of house-to-house fighting in Gaza City, complete with target graphics. Here, an Israeli armored vehicle approaches. A hit from a shoulder-launched missile. We don't know what happened to the crew inside, and we're not being told. If there are gruesome images, Hamas has not publicized them, unlike the horror they recorded on October the 7th, when they targeted defenseless civilians in Israel. But the message is clear. We are fighting the Israelis on our turf. They don't seem to be in the mood for a ceasefire, and nor do they. Israeli ground troops advancing deep into Gaza with their superior armor, courtesy of the IDF media division. Fighting perhaps on the same streets, perhaps on the same day, in a city reduced to rubble. Hunting down Hamas, claiming to have targeted at least 2,000 Hamas positions with casualties to match, but with no independent verification. The silent cockpit collage of airstrikes, round the clock for a whole month. They've given Israel the military advantage, but at a huge cost to civilian lives. This is what so many want Israel to cease or pause. The strikes become a blur. They feel disconnected from their impact. Until you film the aftermath and zoom into the human consequences, courtesy of journalist drones in Gaza. This was the Mugazi refugee camp this morning. The panorama of destruction from the air soon becomes the particular of tragedy on the ground. And that unbearable murmur of misery returns. At least 40 dead, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. Israel doesn't deny the number, but says that the presence of Hamas units makes it a legitimate target. What human price victory? It is the question that haunts this war, perhaps any war. And here too, both sides have answers that are unacceptable to the other. Navigating this political moral maze is America's chief diplomat Antony Blinken, flitting around the Middle East. This morning, a surprise visit to Ramallah to talk to the aging president of the Palestinian Authority for the first time in this war. Rumours are that he wants him to help manage Gaza after the war is over. But if there was an election in the West Bank today, chances are that Hamas would win. No wonder they didn't have a press conference afterwards. The people in power here lack the mandate to govern. The people on the streets have the mandate of rage. And no one has a clue what actually might work after the bloodshed ceases. Even more awkward for America's chief diplomat was this welcoming committee in Adana, Turkey, for the final leg of his mission. The US is trying and failing to be an honest broker in a bitterly tribal conflict playing out on the world stage, demanding that everyone, everywhere, pick a side. Emerging from the rubble of Gaza today, she deserves better. And some breaking news tonight. As we come on air, reports of attacks across Israel's northern border with Lebanon. Lebanese media reporting an Israeli strike has killed a grandmother and 3 children in a car. The Lebanese foreign minister said the government would complain to the United Nations. Israel says one Israeli civilian was killed in a missile strike by the armed Hezbollah group. Well, joining me now from Ramallah in the West Bank is Noor Odeh, the former spokesperson to the Palestinian Authority. Noor, it's good to have you back on the programme. Let's start, first of all, with this visit by Antony Blinken in Ramallah to see Abu Mazen, the Palestinian Authority president. How significant was it that he finally got to see him in person?
Well, politically, the picture was important that Antony Blinken, who was visiting all sorts of capitals in the region, had to come and speak to the Palestinian president. This was an unpopular visit as far as the public opinion is concerned, and there were marches in the street demanding that he not be received. Having said that, we didn't really hear a lot from official sources about what actually was discussed in those meetings. One can guess that these were very uncomfortable conversations, and there was an attempt to, reaffirm nuance. That any discussion about the day after would have to be in the context of a wider political solution, that this is not about just managing Palestinians while they remain languishing under occupation without a political horizon. So, but that's really as far as we got in terms of information.
Indeed. I mean, there was no press conference afterwards, which is frustrating for all of us, trying to get more information out of both sides. But also this idea, and I think you touched on it, that Abu Mazen or the Palestinian Authority would help to run the Gaza Strip, where they are not popular at all, or certainly weren't before the war started, as long as Israel sticks to a genuine commitment to the two-state solution. But that is very much a round peg in a square peg in a round hole, isn't it, at the moment?
It sure is. I mean, right now, I'm not sure what the end game for the U.S. is, to be honest. I feel like Anthony Blinken is kind of making it up as he goes along, because the Israelis aren't clear about what their end game is. We hear Israeli officials talking about decimating Gaza. We hear Israeli officials talking about getting rid of the entire population of Gaza, of building settlements once again in Gaza. Of all sorts of nightmarish scenarios as far as Palestinians are concerned. And we hear about the day after and having the PA go over there as if nothing had happened, as if it's easy to just pick up the slack, receive a disaster zone that has been turned uninhabitable, and things can, move along. And that's very detached from the truth.
It's the real problem here that on both sides, on the Palestinian side and on the Israeli side, there are leaders that no longer have a mandate, and therefore there's no real leadership, which is what you need in order to bring about some kind of solution.
I think that is a very important chunk of the problem. Another dimension of the problem is that the Biden administration is not interested in having a revitalized representative Palestinian polity. They want to deal with those they're comfortable dealing with, and they don't want to hear about Palestinian dialogue or Palestinian unity or Palestinian elections. They want to have a group of people that fit to size, that they can talk to regardless of what the Palestinian street feels about that. And I think that it will become very quickly apparent that that is not a workable arrangement when the dust settles and after the entirety of this catastrophe unraveling in Gaza becomes even clearer.
A sobering note to end on. No, dear, thank you very much indeed. Well, let's go to Ami Ayalon. He's the former head of Israel's domestic intelligence service, Shin Bet, and a former member of parliament for the Israeli Labour Party. He joins me now from northern Israel. It's good to have you on the program, sir. When you hear what you just heard from Ramallah, and you see the diplomatic efforts which are being conducted frantically by the Americans, do you think that diplomacy has failed, or is it actually succeeding and we're not noticing it?
Well, if I'm trying to understand the reality today, it's obvious that diplomacy has failed. Because, the reality in the Middle East, especially between Palestinians and Israelis, is a nightmare, as you described it earlier. But I'm not looking on the present. I'm trying to understand the past and in a way to jump ahead into the future and to dream or to describe a better reality. I have to remind myself, I was a young naval officer during the Yom Kippur War, which was a bloody war. It took about 4 years since the end of the war until the visit of President Sadat in Jerusalem, and 2 more years until we signed a peace agreement. So I think that we have to understand that sometimes, and this is our challenge, this is what we are facing today, us and the Palestinians, and the question is whether we can create, whether we can identify the opportunity which, the way I understand it, is in a way ahead of us. I was listening to the woman that presented the Palestinian society, and if I understand, and she said something that I totally agree. We cannot create a better future until we shall understand the concept, and the concept of the future is to create a better political horizon for both of us. And this political horizon will be based on the Arab Peace Initiative. And this is what we have to learn from the nightmare that we are facing, all of us today.
Right, but whenever you've had courageous political leaders in this part of the world who genuinely advance the cause of peace, you know, whether it's Anwar Sadat or Yitzhak Rabin, they end up getting assassinated by extremists on their own side.
Okay, I have to admit I was a lousy politician, and the fact that I decided that I cannot influence while I was in politics, but I learned something, and we shouldn't try to understand or to measure the reality when we see the leadership of today, on both sides, by the way. Netanyahu do not represent the Israelis, and Abbas do not represent the Palestinians. But we have to listen. We don't have to listen to the people who present the extreme ideas, as I heard from the Palestinian representative that spoke before me. There are some lunatics within our political community who believe that we can kill all our enemies. They do not represent more than 5% of the Israelis.
Okay.
And I believe that Hamas and the massacre that they showed us do not represent the Palestinian people. Now, let me tell you something.
Sure.
10 days ago, when Israelis were asked who should replace Hamas on the day after in Gaza, between 70 to 80% of the Palestinians said that they believe that the Palestinian Authority should enter into the vacuum that hopefully will be created on the day after. Why I'm saying it? Because you have to understand that a month ago, you couldn't hear Israelis who would tell you the same.
Okay, all right, we've got no time left, so a quick question and a one-word answer. Is Bibi Netanyahu the man who could lead this country to a better and more peaceful solution, yes or no?
No.
Okay, we'll leave it there.
Bibi Netanyahu is over.
That's it, that's all we have time for. I'm sorry, we're going to leave it there.
Ami
Aylon, thank you very much.
In power the moment that this battle is over.
Okay, got to leave it. Thank you, Ami Aylon. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll continue the conversation another day. Now, the Scottish First Minister, Hamza Youssef, says that his parents-in-law have now arrived safely in Scotland after they were trapped in Gaza for 4 weeks. Mr. Youssef shared a photograph of the family, including his wife's parents, Elizabeth and Magid Al-Nakla. They were among a group of British nationals allowed to leave through the Rafah crossing into Egypt on Friday morning. Now, they went to a music festival to celebrate friends, love and infinite freedom, only to find themselves in the midst of a massacre. Some 270 people were killed and an unknown number injured and taken hostage when Hamas attacked the Supernova Trance Music Festival 3 miles from Israel's border with Gaza on October the 7th. The young people who endured hours under fire and saw their friends killed and kidnapped are only now beginning to process that trauma and the consequences for themselves personally, for Israel and for Gaza. The 3 survivors spoke to our international editor, Lindsay Hilsum. Watch.
We were dancing, and those seconds of being so unbelievably happy and safe and feel all the love, and then half a second after that, you are running for your life. I was so exhausted and so terrified. And then, because it's like a desert, so it's very open, there is no place to hide, but we found this place and we saw some like bushes and herbs. So we just like crawled inside, tried to cover ourselves with leaves. And we stayed there for 6 hours.
He's comforting you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he can sense that we
Yeah.
need it.
You feel scared? Moment?
I feel scared all the time. I honestly, I feel like I've already, in a way, I feel like I've died. I know it's not fair to say because there are people who didn't make it, but it feels like being a ghost.
When it happened, like 2 times I ran and stopped because I didn't believe that this actually happened. So now I feel like everything could happen. Like for me, it's make logic that terrorists will come from there and shoot me right now.
I think a lot of the people that have been there feel it's like a miracle because there's no way. Like they have a picture of the white tents with all of the bodies. I've been there when they started shooting, so all of the people that is dead now over there, that they got murdered, I could have been one of them. If I didn't do this, I'll probably be dead. If I didn't do that, I'm probably be dead. So you can imagine yourself dying over and over and over again.
It's the experience of a lot of survival. Like we go back and we try to like replay like everything that we did. We understand that every decision that we made was
Critical.
yeah, it was.
Tell me, what helps? Does anything help?
For me, helps talking.
Talking.
Like when I tell my story, it helps me, I think.
There's no way that this trauma will vanish. No, like, but it's only time, I believe. Only time.
Do you think it's changed you as a person or how you look at the world?
In some way, I feel like, okay, this world is like much worse than I thought, much more cynical.
Yeah.
Like people see it and think this is somehow acts of freedom fighters. I can get it.
We stop being naive.
What about you, Millet? Do you feel it's changed you?
Yeah, I feel like my entire being has been shattered. Like to know that other people are actually being able to laugh and celebrate the thing that my country is going through right now. It's beyond devastating.
And also, I'm lots of like social media, Twitter and stuff, and I see like people from in other countries who denies it and like diminish it, and like president of Turkey saying that these are not acts of terror. So what is terror if this is not terror? So this is kind of making me think that we live in a bad world.
And what about the bombing of Gaza? Because obviously there is concern about the number of civilians. People like you, people, you know, young men and women like you being killed in Gaza.
I know that Hamas is hostage. איך אומרים? מחזיקים אותם גם
They use them as human shields.
Yeah, we know that. We've been there.
They
Been there,
like
done that. We
shoot
know
from-
this is their strategy. We're not the only the good side. We know that the bombing in Gaza, it's not. It's horrifying. Yeah, I really don't want kids and women and good people that are against Hamas will die. But if you are with Hamas and you do believe in their way, how do you want us to handle this? Like they're butchers of people. Like it's not a revenge; it's the reality.
We really don't know what to do. People don't understand, like, what options do we have, honestly? Like, the innocent people are going to get killed no matter what we're going to do. It's the way it is when there is a terror organization that is active. That's that.
Is there another way?
No, unfortunately, no. Like, if our army were just going inside without bombing first, we would have lots of casualties, and we had enough casualties on October 7th.
Yeah.